When everything falls apart, a family story of survival. The camera captured what words often fail to express, a family holding on by a thread. Mark and Sarah Henderson sat on their living room couch, their 2 daughters behind them, in what would become the most vulnerable moment of their lives shared with the world. This wasn't a carefully staged photo shoot. This was raw reality, frozen in time. The collapse. Just 18 months earlier, the Hendersons were living comfortably in suburban Michigan. Mark worked as an engineer at an automotive supplier, a job he'd held for 9 years. Sarah balanced part-time work as a dental hygienist with raising their daughters, 9-year-old Chloe and 7-year-old Mia. They weren't wealthy, but they were secure. They had a modest home, reliable cars, and enough left over for family vacations and the girls' activities. Then the dominoes started falling. It began with Mark's back injury, a herniated disc that progressively worsened until he could barely stand for more than 20 minutes. Surgery was recommended, but the recovery time was 6 months. Mark took medical leave, expecting to return to work once he healed. He never got that chance. While Mark was recovering, his company lost their major contract. Layoffs swept through the organization like wildfire. Mark received the news while still in physical therapy. His position had been eliminated. After 9 years of dedication, he was out. The timing couldn't have been worse. Mark was still recovering, unable to take on physical work. Sarah increased her hours, but her part-time income couldn't cover their mortgage, car payments, insurance, and mounting medical bills. Their savings evaporated within 3 months. The downward spiral Sarah watched their life unravel with horrifying speed. First, they missed a mortgage payment, then another. Credit card minimums became impossible to meet. The car was repossessed on a Tuesday morning while Chloe and Mia watched from the living room window, confused and frightened. "Where's Daddy's car going?" Mia asked, her small voice trembling. Sarah didn't know how to explain that they couldn't afford to keep it anymore. How do you tell a 7-year-old that everything they've known as stable is crumbling? Mark spiraled into depression. The physical pain from his injury was manageable compared to the emotional agony of watching his family suffer because he couldn't provide. He applied for jobs obsessively, but the market was saturated with experienced engineers, many younger and willing to work for less. The rejection emails became a daily torture. Sarah tried to hold everything together, but the weight was crushing. She worked longer hours, took on extra shifts, and spent her nights calculating numbers that never added up to anything hopeful. She stopped sleeping well. She stopped eating regularly. Her smile, once so easy, became something she had to consciously construct for her daughter's sake. The girls noticed everything. Chloe, perceptive and sensitive, started having nightmares. Mia became clingy and anxious, crying at drop-offs and struggling in school. The stress in their home was palpable, hanging in the air like smoke. Rock bottom. The foreclosure notice arrived 6 months after Mark lost his job. They had 60 days to leave their home, the place where both girls had taken their first steps, where birthday parties and Christmas mornings had created a tapestry of happy memories. Sarah found Mark in the garage, sitting in the dark, the notice crumpled in his hand. His shoulders shook with silent sobs. "I've destroyed our family," he whispered. "Everything we built. I destroyed it." "No," Sarah said firmly, kneeling beside him. "Life destroyed it. Bad luck destroyed it. But we're still here, Mark. We're still a family. That's what matters." But even as she said the words, Sarah wasn't sure she believed them. How could they be a family without a home? How could they protect their children from this trauma? How could they survive? They swallowed their pride and asked for help. Sarah's brother offered his basement, unfinished, cramped, but free. They moved in with 3 suitcases of belongings, most of their possessions sold or stored. The girls shared an air mattress. Mark and Sarah slept on a donated futon. Privacy was non-existent. Dignity felt like a luxury they'd lost along with everything else. The turning point. That's when Live on Purpose, a nonprofit organization focused on family resilience, reached out. They were documenting families navigating financial hardship, and someone had connected them with the Hendersons. "We want to show that good families can face bad circumstances," the program director explained. "Your story could help others feel less alone." Mark was reluctant. Wasn't it bad enough to be living this nightmare without broadcasting it to the world? But Sarah saw it differently. If our pain can help even one family feel less ashamed, isn't it worth it? She asked. So they agreed to the photo and interview. The day of the shoot, they borrowed Sarah's brother's couch, trying to create a sense of normalcy. Mark wore a button-down shirt. Sarah put on makeup for the first time in weeks. They wanted to look put together, even though they felt shattered. But the photographer asked them to just be real. Don't perform, she said gently, just be. So they sat together, exhausted, worried, but still united. Chloe and Mia positioned themselves behind their parents, instinctively seeking the comfort of closeness. The camera captured the weariness in Mark's eyes, the determined set of Sarah's jaw, the innocence of children affected by circumstances beyond their understanding. The tips that saved them. In the interview, the Hendersons shared the hard-won wisdom from their darkest period. Communicate honestly. We started telling each other the truth about how scared we were, Sarah explained. That vulnerability brought us closer instead of driving us apart. Ask for help early. We waited. Too long, Mark admitted. By the time we asked for help, we were in crisis. Don't let pride delay reaching out to family, friends, or community resources. Focus on controllables. I couldn't control the job market or our financial situation, Mark said. But I could control my attitude and my commitment to my family. That focus saved me from complete despair. Protect your relationship. In crisis, it's easy to become roommates managing problems instead of partners supporting each other, Sarah noted. We had to intentionally connect, even when we were exhausted. Be age-appropriately honest with kids. Our girls knew something was wrong, Sarah said. Being honest helped reduce their anxiety and taught them about resilience. Redefine success. Success became getting through another day together, Mark explained. Small victories matter when you're in survival mode. Find purpose in pain. We chose to let this experience teach us rather than destroy us, Sarah said. That choice made all the difference. The response. When their story went public, the response overwhelmed them. Thousands of people shared similar experiences: job loss, medical crisis, foreclosure. The messages poured in from families who had felt alone in their shame and suddenly realized they weren't. Thank you for your bravery, one message read. You helped me ask my family for help instead of losing everything first. Your story saved my marriage, another person wrote. We were blaming each other. Seeing your unity gave us hope. More tangibly, Mark received job leads from people who saw the story. One led to an interview, which led to a position as a project coordinator. Not his old salary, but enough to start rebuilding. Where they are now, a year after that photo was taken, the Hendersons moved into a small rental house. It's modest, but it's theirs. The girls have their own room again. Sarah and Mark sleep in an actual bedroom with a door that closes. Mark's job isn't glamorous, but it's stable. Sarah continues working, and they're slowly paying down debt. They'll probably never own a home again, at least not for many years. Their credit is damaged, their savings non-existent, their retirement plans derailed. But they're together, they're surviving, and slowly, carefully, they're beginning to believe in the possibility of thriving again. Chloe still worries more than a 10-year-old should. Mia has separation anxiety. Mark battles depression. Sarah struggles with financial PTSD, panicking at unexpected expenses. Recovery isn't linear or complete. The scars remain, but so does the love. So does the resilience. So does the family that refused to break, even when everything else did. The message: if the Hendersons could speak to families in crisis today, they would say this: you are not alone. You are not failures. Your struggle doesn't define your worth or your family's value. Ask for help. Be honest with each other. Focus on what you can control. Celebrate small victories. Choose purpose over victimhood. These tips won't solve all your problems. They won't pay your bills or eliminate your stress, but they might help you survive with your family intact, your dignity preserved, and your hope still flickering. And sometimes survival is enough. Sometimes survival is everything. The photo of the Henderson family remains a powerful testament to the strength of ordinary people facing extraordinary hardship. Behind the weary eyes and brave faces is a story that thousands of American families live every day, a story of loss, struggle, perseverance, and the enduring power of family love. They didn't choose this struggle, but they chose how to face it. That choice changed everything. Richard's hand moved slowly across the table and closed the black box. withdrawing it as if Thomas had proven himself unworthy of its contents. His face had gone gray, older somehow, and for a moment Thomas felt a stab of guilt so sharp it nearly made him take it all back. "I see," Richard said. "And does your mother know about this revelation?" "She knows. She's known for years, actually. She was the one who encouraged me to tell you, to stop living a lie." Something flickered across Richard's face. Betrayal, maybe, or hurt that his wife had kept this secret. Of course she did. Of course she would encourage you to destroy everything we've built. "I'm not destroying anything, Dad. I'm just choosing a different life than the one you planned for me." "There's no difference, Thomas. To me, those are the same thing." Their food arrived, delivered by a different server this time. Emma had wisely passed them off to someone else. The ribeye sat in front of Richard, perfectly cooked, expensive, exactly what he'd ordered every time they'd come here for the past 28 years. Thomas's salad looked wilted and sad. Neither of them picked up their forks. "So what now?" Richard asked. "What's your grand plan? You walk away from the firm, from your family, from everything you've ever known, and then what? You and this Marcus," he said the name like it hurt his teeth, "you're going to do what exactly?" "Live," Thomas said simply. "Just live. Figure it out as we go. Maybe I'll teach, maybe I'll write, maybe I'll find something I'm actually passionate about instead of something I'm supposed to be passionate about." "You sound like a child." "Maybe, but I'd rather sound like a child and feel alive than sound like a man and feel dead inside." Richard picked up his knife and fork, cut into his steak with violent precision. Blood pooled on the white plate. He took a bite, chewed mechanically, swallowed. "This conversation is over," he said finally. "If you walk out of this restaurant, having made this decision, you're making a choice. Do you understand? You're choosing him, this life, over your family. That's not fair. Life isn't fair, Thomas. That's another thing you'll learn when you're living in whatever fantasy world you think you're entering. Life isn't fair, and families require loyalty, even when that loyalty requires lying, especially then, because sometimes lies are kinder than truths. Sometimes pretending is what holds everything together. You think your grandparents were happy. You think anyone's marriage is what it appears to be. We do what we have to do." Thomas felt tears burning behind his eyes but refused to let them fall. Not here, not in Lombardy's, where Whitmore men were supposed to be made of stronger stuff. "I love you, Dad," he said quietly, "but I can't be what you want me to be. I've tried. God knows I've tried, but it's killing me. Every day I pretend it takes a piece of me. Eventually there won't be anything left. There's already nothing left," Richard said, his voice flat. "The son I raised would never do this. Whoever you are now, whoever you've decided to become, I don't know him." The words landed like physical blows. Thomas had known they were coming. His therapist had warned him, had helped him prepare for rejection, but knowing and experiencing were different things. The pain was exquisite, perfect, absolute. "Maybe you never knew him," Thomas said, standing up. His legs felt unsteady, but he remained upright. "Maybe the son you raised was just another role I was playing, just like all the other roles in this family. Maybe it's time someone broke the cycle." He pulled out his wallet, placed $300 bills on the table, more than enough to cover both meals and leave Emma a generous tip for the trauma. Richard didn't look at the money, didn't look at Thomas. He simply sat there, a man in his 60s eating steak alone in a restaurant full of people, the black box with his father's cufflinks sitting beside, his plate like an accusation. "Goodbye, Dad," Thomas said. Richard didn't respond. He cut another piece of steak, brought it to his mouth, chewed with the mechanical precision of a man going through motions. Around them, Lombardy's continued its evening service, indifferent to the small tragedy unfolding in the corner booth. Thomas walked toward the exit, past the oil paintings and the other diners, past Emma, who gave him a quick, sympathetic glance, past the maitre d' who'd known him since he was a boy. The October air hit him as he stepped onto the Manhattan sidewalk, cool, clean, full of possibility. His phone buzzed. A text from Marcus. How did it go? Thomas stood there on the sidewalk, people flowing around him, the lights of the city beginning to glow in the gathering dusk. Inside Lombardy's, his father sat alone, perhaps already planning how to explain Thomas's absence to the partners at the firm, to the family, to everyone who'd been expecting one story and would now have to reconcile themselves to another. Thomas typed his response, "I'll tell you everything when I get home." Home, not the apartment in Tribeca where he'd grown up, not his grandfather's house in Connecticut, not any of the places that carried the Whitmore name. Home was a small walk-up in Brooklyn with Marcus, with books stacked everywhere and terrible water pressure and neighbors who played salsa music too loud on weekends. Home was whatever he and Marcus would build together, brick by uncertain brick. As Thomas walked toward the subway, he felt the weight he'd been carrying begin to lift. The guilt remained. It would probably always remain. But beneath it was something else, relief, freedom, the terrifying, exhilarating sensation of standing at the edge of his own life, finally ready to jump. Behind him, in Lombardi's warm, familiar interior, Richard Whitmore continued his meal alone. The empty seat across from him seemed to grow larger with each passing moment, a void where a son had been, where a future had been planned, where 4 generations of tradition had come to meet the immovable object of one man's truth. The server who'd replaced Emma approached cautiously. "Can I get you anything else, sir?" Richard looked at Thomas's untouched salad, at the money on the table, at the black box containing cufflinks that would now have no one to pass them to. "No," he said quietly, "there's nothing else." And in that moment, both men, father and son, separated now by choice and by truth, were finally, devastatingly honest.
Precious, the courage to lift the weight of their pasts and pull themselves free into an uncertain but possible future. Sometimes salvation looks like a stranger in a blue shirt, climbing through hell to reach you. Sometimes hope looks like a woman in a red dress, refusing to let you give up. Sometimes survival is simply holding on until someone else can hold on with you. And sometimes, when the ground stops shaking, that's when the real work of rebuilding begins.